Hi everyone, and welcome to Wordsmiths. My name is Jenna, and here we talk about elements of storytelling to help you with your own creative projects. Today's topic is point of view and narration. You don't want to mess these up because it establishes your authority as a storyteller. So, choosing how to narrate. First off, your narrator is a guide. They provide perspective on characters, events, the setting, or other important details. They can give us structure on how we view the protagonist's life, so rather than leaving us as confused or without direction as the main character might be, we can make sense of what's happening and why. Point of view decides where our attention is focused. Your characters will all have different ways of thinking and feeling, and who the narrator centers on will affect how we experience the story. So the question is, how do you want the audience to experience the story? Close and personal, or an outsider view with reflective commentary, or something more immersive. Also consider past or present. I don't mean past or present tense, just the style that you're going to write with. Like, at the time I thought this would happen. Boy, was I wrong. That says the narrator knows what will happen, and you can get a little reflection out of it, which can be especially nice if the character changes a lot. A present storytelling style wouldn't have that foreshadowing element. It would be focused on what the characters currently know without hints of what will happen. So, moving on to first person. First person uses I pronouns. It focuses on that character's unique way of seeing and feeling things, so there's a heavy focus on voice, how they speak and think. This is good for personal stories and especially colorful, complex protagonists who capture our attention. It keeps the reader close, so we get to experience the story as they do. Something important which you could take advantage of is the fact that a character is biased and unreliable. You can only share what that character knows at any given time. You can only write thoughts or ways of speaking that they would and notice what they would. At the same time, that's what makes first person effective. You're experiencing the character's mind firsthand. First person will always be, in some way, an unreliable narrator because of it. The reader can't take everything they perceive as true. The protagonist might even be a notorious liar or hide important details until they have to explain them to the reader. That can help you build tension, depending on the kind of story you want to tell. Also, you don't want to get caught up in the narrator's mind too much. Don't lose the focus on the actions they take. Second person uses you pronouns to make it as if you, the reader, are a character in the narrative. It's not a common point of view for novels. You'd be more likely to see it in short stories, but even then it's not very common. I'm no expert on this point of view, but it seems you could use it for atmospheric, emotional, or thematic work pretty well. I read The Reluctant Fundamentalist, and it used second person to build tension for the framework story. You are an American in Pakistan, and you end up having tea with the main character who tells you his story. The point of view choice sets you into it right away and highlights suspicious details about you and the situation. You seem worried. Do not be. This burly fellow is merely our waiter, and there is no need to reach under your jacket, I assume to grasp your wallet, as we will pay him later when we are done. You can see in this excerpt that a reader can infer you, the character, feel threatened and might be carrying a gun, and earlier clues suggest you might be some kind of spy or agent or assassin. You learn about your character through the other man's eyes. It's pretty cool. So that's one way to use second person. Third person uses he, she pronouns. The narrator is pretty much invisible. This point of view gives you more narrative freedom. When and how you narrate events doesn't have to be filtered through a single character. Third, limited shares one character's thoughts and feelings. It might also be called close third. You can choose how closely your narrator shares the character's inner world, if at all, which would be objective third. Objective third doesn't let the reader into the character's mind. It would focus on their actions or body language to show how they feel. With third person, events might happen without the main character being present, like in Harry Potter when McGonagall and Dumbledore talk about Harry before we get to know him. The narrator can give important information that a character doesn't know, or they can be more effective in explaining concepts in the story's world that we need to understand. The point is, you'll have a little more narrative freedom with this. There's also third omniscient. The narrator for third omniscient is all-knowing, not just about events. They can share multiple characters' experiences, thoughts, and feelings. It kind of gives you unlimited freedom, but because of that, it can be challenging to write. It's different from a book that changes characters' perspectives by chapter or scene. You'll have to figure out what are the best times to delve into characters' thoughts or withhold them. You don't want to share too much from too many people, or it gets tiring for your reader. You also have to consider who is the best character to focus on during certain events. It should be the one who has the highest stakes, the most to lose or gain from the situation. Let's look at a first-person example from Spin the Dawn. Ask me to spin the finest yarn or thread, and I can do it faster than any man, even with my eyes closed. Yet ask me to tell a lie, and I will stumble and falter to think of one. Those are the first lines, and they establish a strong voice. We can also infer that our narrator is confident, talented, and honest. Sharing something she's bad at makes us inclined to trust her too. The second quote here, I mostly wanted to point out how she describes her and her brother's freckles as a result of our hours daydreaming under the sun. That sounds specific to this narrator. It tells us she's kind of a dreamer or a romantic as well, and from the first 10 pages you can tell she has a strong love for her family. Choosing first person for this character quickly relates these things to the reader and makes it feel more personal, like our narrator is already a friend to us. So first person was a good choice. For a third person example, I have this excerpt from Forging the Sword, the last book of the Farsala trilogy, which is what I just finished. Quote, but he's helping you now and betraying the Hrum. Doesn't that... He paused to search for words, but Soraya didn't care how he phrased it. No, she said, it doesn't. It only makes him a traitor twice over. She went back to work then, gathering up rocks from the canyon floor, and soon the others rejoined her. She could feel Abab's gaze on her as she filled the baskets, but he said nothing more, working beside her in silence until they returned to camp for the final meal of the night. This is third limited, from Soraya's perspective. Abab's emotions are not narrated, though we can tell that his thoughts differ from Soraya's. Only his words and the behavior Soraya can perceive are described, like feeling his gaze on her. Using an adjective like worried or confused to describe his gaze would technically be a point of view break for two reasons. She's feeling his gaze, not seeing it, and second, that tells us how he feels. Any outside description of Soraya would be a point of view break too. Something like, she went back to work with a determination that made it clear the conversation was over. Clear to who? It wouldn't be from her perspective if worded that way. There's also the freedom to change perspectives, which is important for this story since the plot occurs among 3 main characters. So switching point of views or perspectives, it's recommended to stick to the type you choose. It can feel unsettling for a reader if you try to switch from, say, first to third, but it can be done. There has to be a reason, though. It can't be arbitrary. It's also recommended to stay with one character, but if you can handle it and it's important for you to be able to move between perspectives, go ahead and try it. It can build tension and suspense, like, oh, what will they do when they find out about this? Or maybe the plot is happening in more than one place. Sometimes it's effective to let your reader into the loop. Sometimes, not so much. The reveal of information is a weapon, and you need it to be effective. It's important to always make a switch clear, though, either for a new scene or chapter. And again, if changing perspectives, follow whoever has the highest stakes or development for the scene. It can also be hard to keep track of what's happening and who knows what. Believe me, I have to make timelines and maps of who knows what. Lastly, they should all be vital characters to the plot. The Farsala trilogy's 3 perspective characters all play key roles in their country's fight against a conquering nation. I listed a couple more there, like 6 of Crows and A Song of Fire and Ice, Those also have changing perspectives. Now, time for prompts. If you can, examine something you've written already and decide if you got the point of view and perspective right. Would it be more effective to write it in third person? Would you rather try third omniscient? Is the character your narrator is following the one with the highest stakes, the most to lose or gain? If not, try writing it again with new insight. You can also look up books written in second person and give them a try. Or identify some major life moments that have shaped your main character's perspective on the world, their life, or themselves. Write a piece where they're speaking directly to you or another character about what you should understand about the way that they think and feel. That's all today. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, keep reading and stay inspired.